you want more of the conventional wisdom on sales and growing revenue, this podcast isn't for you. Throw away your closing tactics, tricks, and tips and learn what the top 1% income earners do to create results. This is the OnPurpose Growth Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the OnPurpose Growth Podcast. My name is Bryan McDonald of OnPurpose Growth. And today I've got with me my good friend, Ben Snelling and his business is the Online Dadpreneur. And what we're going to be talking about today is, Ben's purpose behind what he does and what drives him. So it's going to be an exciting conversation. It always is when I hop on a call with Ben. So Ben, thanks for coming on today, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Bryan.
Cool. So why don't you give everybody, the watchers and the listeners, a little bit background of who you are and kind of how you got here today? Absolutely,
man. My background is actually in finance. I was in finance for 10 years almost, nearly 10 years. Was a certified financial planner, was good at what I did, was very knowledgeable, but I was missing something. I was missing a purpose in my life. I was missing the biggest piece for me. And so I went through some trials and tribulations in my life about 2.5 years ago, where the stress of bringing in clients and the financial firm I was working for at the time, it had beaten me down. I got to a point where I was so stressed. I'm sitting at my desk one day and I can just feel my chest just tighten up and my heart starts to have palpitations. Like I'd never experienced anything like this in my entire life. And so I'm sitting at my desk and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, what is going on? Like my chest is tightening up. My heart is like beating at weird rhythms. And like, I felt off. Like I didn't feel right. I was starting to sweat. And so I like scrambled to my car. I call my wife on the way to the ER and like, I don't know what is going on. I think I'm having a heart attack, and end up in the ER. They hook me up to all these machines. They run all these tests, blood tests, everything else. And the doctor comes in, he's like, we need to talk to you, about your tests. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, like what's going on? Just tell me, like, how do we fix this? And he goes, everything looks great. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm seriously having like palpitations over here. He said, it seems like to me, it's probably due to stress and anxiety. And I'm like, wow, wait, what? So, I mean, here I was at the time, I'm 30 now. I was 28, I was 27 years old, 27 and a half in the ER for chest pains. Oh, right. And at that point, I hit a point where I realized, look, I got to do something different, and started to explore what that was for me. And so through self-exploration, through learning how to manage my stress through meditation, through prayer, through all these different things, all these different tools and resources I had and activities I had to de-stress, I learned how to be a pretty stress-free guy. And which is tough nowadays, right? I mean, right, our heads cut off, and we've got this high stress society we live in that we've built and designed. But I learned how to cope with that in a really healthy way. And I started to get feedbacks from some of my buddies who were like, what are you doing, man? Yeah, right. You're showing up in this entirely different way. And then from there, ended up coaching some of them through how to de-stress in this busy work life environment that we deal with. How to come home and be present with your kids, how to truly connect with your kids. And through coaching some of these dads, I built a little business on the side. And I was like, wait a minute, what is this little side business we got going on? Right. And I was making some extra money, thousands of dollars. And I'm going, okay, this is cool. And then what happened, some of those same dads came back to me and it started asking me questions about my side business. They're like, I see what you're doing over here. How do you do that? I said, oh, well, do this and do that and change, you can do this and you can promote it this way. And it's super easy. And you just talk to some people, because I'd been in that world. I'd been in finance. So I'd been prospecting, off. Right. Like to build up books of business and do all this, building up client bases. And so learning, like teaching those tools to some of these dads and teaching them how to convert that over to the online world was where this online dadpreneur started to develop for me. And then what happened is I started to make more money coaching dads how to launch businesses than I was with the life coaching and the anxiety coaching.
Wow.
And so I started to make the shift, and I realized that the two biggest things that all dads want more of: money and time.
Yep.
And it's not, and what's crazy is like, they'll all tell you that they all want more money. They all want more time. But it's not necessarily for selfish reasons. They want more money, most of them, if they get down to the heart of it, so that they can be with their family more and have more experiences with their family.
Yep.
And then the time is the same thing. They want to spend more time with their kids. They want to spend more time being happy and on vacations and doing the things that they really enjoy in life versus being stuck in an office all day. And so what I started to do and realize was that as I talked to more and more dadpreneurs, especially those online, I realized, wait a minute, we're all in this same battle together. We're all trying to build our businesses. We're all trying to scale our time. We're all trying to automate things so that we can be home more. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of working from home, right? I mean, you get to do the things you want to do. You get to spend time with your kids, and it's awesome. But teaching, what happened for me at least, was I started to network with these other dadpreneurs. And then what we did, we actually built a training for dadpreneurs. And so it developed from there, Bryan, and it continues to develop. And that was the purpose for me and we'll get into this on why I did this, but that was the purpose for me. Was I needed to make a change in my life. I needed to make a change, and I did. And then I started to teach other people how to make that same change. And it just started to evolve from there.
I mean, that's at 27, being able to come to that assessment and understanding, even though like there was this big, moment of, you weren't an experience that old dudes have, man, right? No. You shouldn't even have that. And to go through that experience seemed to just be a blessing, right?
Yes. Yeah. It was super eye-opening for me. You go through something like that, and it makes you question everything. It makes you really realize how important life is and the things that you want to do to create, because we don't know how long we're going to be here. Right. We don't know how much time we have on this earth. So why not create the best life we possibly can?
Exactly. So how are you doing that now? So you have this, revelation and awakening, mm-hmm. And how are you doing creating the best life for yourself now and helping other people do that, I'm assuming?
Yeah. And that's the beautiful part of it, is I get to teach dads now, especially entrepreneurs, how to scale and grow and automate their businesses so that they can be with their families more, that they can go enjoy life more. And that's really what I'm doing at this point. But why I do it, Bryan, and that's the most important thing for me, is I wake up every morning and through some of myself and, reflection and through introspection, whatever you want to call it, I came to the why. And this took me years to find, right? I mean, because a lot of your listeners, guys, you won't find your why today. And you may, that's great if you do, but it takes time, it takes persistence, it takes effort, and your why changes over time is what I've found.
You have
depending on situations.
You have to be committed to finding it. That's really what it's about.
Yeah, it's like this never-ending pursuit of finding your why. So for me, it was this pursuit, and I wanted to find it so bad. And through it took me about 2 years to figure this out, but through failing at a bunch of other businesses and through getting, all of this emotional intelligence work that I did for several years, it came out that I wanted to help raise the next generation of loving, joyful leaders. And I came to that conclusion because not only did I want to do that in my own kids, but it also came from a biblical place for me, because as we talked about, Bryan, I'm a Christian and a follower of Jesus. And for me, the fruits of the Spirit, right? Love, joy, peace. And those are the first three for a reason. So love and joy are the first, or the most two powerful fruits of the Spirit. And so I wanted to instill that in my kids, and I've made it a purpose to do that. But I also wanted to instill that in other dads and how they can teach their kids that. And so through that desire, that want, and that why, I wanted to create that for other dads. And so that's where it just so happened that my skill set lent itself to online businesses. It could have gone in so many different directions, right? I mean, it could have been, anything else to help accomplish that same why. But for me, it was specifically helping dads with online businesses. And that's what I do now. And also, what I found, Bryan, is it's not just about the online businesses. Mm-hmm. As I've started to build this community of dad entrepreneurs, we all have a lot of the same struggles, the same personal things that we've got going on in our lives. It's the community, man.
Yeah.
It's the community of guys who get together and they can be authentic and real and vulnerable and just be like, I am struggling right now and I need some help, and I love this. One of the guys I listen to a lot is Russell Brunson.
Yeah.
And he was talking, he had a podcast recently about the 5, he said, no matter how big your list is, he said, all you need to be successful in as an entrepreneur, an online entrepreneur, is you need 5 really good friends. If you have 5 really good, successful online entrepreneur friends, he said, your business can be failing. You can call them and help, and they will help pull you out of it personally and professionally, and help promote things for you as well.
Right.
But that's the silver lining. But
exactly.
But that rubbed off on me, and I was like, he's so right, because what started to happen through this progression of building this community is cross promotions of how can I help you in your business, and really wanting to help other people, or personally, like how can I help encourage you personally as well, and starting to develop relationships that way, because we're all in this thing together. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And something that I've discovered too is, in business, sometimes we're compartmentalized to just talking about the business and helping people in that area. And when you expand that to helping people personally, like we're all humans, right? We're all people. You can create some very powerful relationships and empower other people to really get what they want in life. So it sounds like you're doing that.
Yeah. And I started from the personal side. For me, it was the life coaching, the personal side, because that was where I developed first. And then I realized, like, what is this? And then once I found out my why, and I figured out how I could deliver that why, and I started to say, what is my skill sets? Like finances and business. I used to do a lot of business strategy and business finances as well. And I was like, man, that's it. And then once I figured out the online business side, it was like tying those things together. It was this beautiful harmony. So that's where we're at today, man. It's a great thing. The community is continuing to develop. So it's really cool to watch.
That's awesome, man. So let's kind of go back to something that you said, because I'd like to expand on it in regards to people searching for their why and not getting it. Talk about that, maybe more in depth, that experience, so people understand, because I get what you're saying. Yeah. And I have a desire to have other people understand so they don't give up.
I think life continually evolves. And I think we continually evolve. Maybe is the better way to put it, through life, right?
Oh yeah.
And so as we move through life, we have to constantly be taking a step back and looking at our life, looking at how we're set up in our lives. And I'm setting up the answer to your question, but
I'm with you.
We have to have the awareness of what's going on in our lives first. And when we have that awareness about who we are as a person, and start to really become aware of our emotions, who we are as a person, and really stepping into that and owning that, that's when we start to say, okay, here's the things that are really important to me. Here's my skill sets. How can I do something and create meaning in my life that could maybe also turn into a business? And that for me, that's where it came, my purpose and my why. But businesses aren't for everybody. Like online, especially entrepreneurship, is not for everybody.
Yeah, no, not at all.
I think people can try, and it can be taught. Absolutely. And people can become entrepreneurs, even though maybe they're not in that mindset at first. But for me, business was that outlet where I could impact people, right? And still fulfill my why. So I think the journey of the why is the awareness first. And then once we have that awareness, fully embracing who we are. And then once we embrace who we are, we start to really understand what we want in life and where we're going and how we can start to impact others. Because the reality of it is, like, we're all in this thing together. We're all trying to go through life and have the most enjoyable life. Like, there's nobody out there going like, I want the most miserable life I possibly can. I'm going to do everything I can. Yeah. So I think that the awareness piece is huge. The embracing of who we are, and then stepping into that and owning that, and really starting to look at our lives and say, what do we want to create? What kind of life am I trying to create? And how can I impact others? Because really and truly, once we take a step back and look at life and look at what we want to accomplish in life, meaning wise, and actually having meaning and purpose on this earth, it's not about the money. It's not about the stuff. It was about the impact. And that comes down to, for me, that came down to the impact, and it boiled down to everything was the impact that I was going to have. And so that's where, you start to decide, okay, how can I have the most impact? And for me, it was starting and helping people launch businesses and grow businesses. For some people, it's volunteering. For other people, it's, ministry work. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways to have an impact. And so I think it's really just going through that process. And I mean, let's be honest, like I'll continue to go through that process. There's times where I have periods in my life where I'm like, I need to take a step back. I need to look and be aware of where I'm at right now. What's going on? Because we all get on autopilot. Let's be honest. Like I had a friend call me out the other day. He's like, or she said, I noticed you're on autopilot lately. You need to check yourself, basically.
Hey, we need friends like that, though.
I was like, you're right. I'm like, you're absolutely right. And you're right. I mean, you have to have friends like that will point it out to you as well.
So what it sounds like is when you became aware of yourself or what was going on, I'll put words in your mouth and you can correct me. You didn't judge it. You just accepted it where you were, and then move from there. And from that point, could you make progress in the direction you really wanted to go?
It takes time.
Yeah.
I will say this, Brad, it's a daily affirmation, man. It's like, there's still moments that come up for me and I'm like, oh, I'll start acting a certain way. And I'm like, what am I doing? And the reality is, like, we all have certain biases. We all have certain, what I call masks, right? Masks that cover up who we really are, that were shaped by our past. And so embracing those masks is really what I'm talking about there. So those masks that come up for us may have, maybe something happens and it triggers me and it comes back to the way my dad used to come home from work, right? Yeah. Or whatever, or how something my mom said to me when I was young, or getting bullied on the playground. Like all these things, it's crazy. They shape who we are today, and we still hold on to them in our subconscious. But those masks, when they come up, they're who we are. Like we can't change that happened to us, but all we can do is be aware that happened, and that's why we're acting the way we're acting, or that's feeling the way we're feeling. And then from there, embracing that, because if you don't embrace it, it's going to build up inside of you, and it's going to get worse. It's not going to get any better. And so one of the cool principles that I learned through all the emotional intelligence training that I did was, when those masks start to come up, I just embrace those masks as just a part of me.
Yep.
And it's something that kind of washes over you, because the awareness is first. Like once you can start to feel emotions coming on, you're like, okay, this is coming on. Why is this coming on? This just happened. Oh yeah, it's because that happened to me in the past. Okay, let's just embrace it. That's who I am. That happened to me. And once you embrace it, it's weird. It's like this calming feeling. You're like, that's just the masks. It's not really me. Right. It's not really me being authentic. Right. And so just realizing that it was that past or the mask that's shaping your actions or emotions, then you can kind of embrace that and move on. Absolutely.
That's great. I'm glad you brought this up, because personally, I've done a lot of work around what you're talking about, and those reactions that, for me personally, that come up, it was just a system, a mechanism that allowed me to get through that point in my life.
Yep.
And now it comes up subconsciously and doesn't serve me in the way it used to serve me. So the more I push against it, the louder it gets. Mm-hmm. And the more I just accept it, say, hey, this is kind of why this is going on. And you, through lots of practice, you let it through. You necessarily, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to say, I guess I'm trying to say not judge it as much anymore, but it's not like a judgment. It's just you love that part of you and you say thanks and keep moving on, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're all messed up individuals. Like, we can't completely control everything in our minds sometimes. And it's scary. I mean, I talk a lot about controlling your thoughts to my coaching clients that I work with, the dad entrepreneurs, because it's so important. But the reality is you can't fully control your thoughts.
Right.
Like your mind wanders. It's the way our minds are wired. But if you don't learn how to control and bring yourself back in, that's what I mean by control your thoughts, right? Because your mind can be wandering throughout the day and you're like, okay, bring it back in, right? We've all had that moment sitting at our desk, like, what am I doing?
Exactly.
That moment of clarity, you're like, I was supposed to be doing this, but I'm just like thinking about something else. So it's just like bringing yourself back in, being aware that you're kind of out there in space, or aware that something's coming up for you. And then, you got to embrace it, man. Move on.
Yeah, we can't, we are emotional beings, and we cannot act like that isn't influencing us, right? Because it's the precursor to your actions. So the more you maneuver through them, the more you can maneuver through life in the way that you want, rather than being a victim of the emotion per se.
Absolutely.
So that's great. So as we unwind here, anything else that you want to share that maybe our listeners can do or use to help them maybe find their purpose or find their why, since we were talking about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a few things that I'll just give advice on, because the reality is finding your purpose, finding your meaning in life is a personal journey.
Yeah.
And we all are on this journey. And so what I'll say is realize that everyone else is on this journey too. Even though they may not look like it, or maybe they're in a stale place in their lives. And so give people grace, right? I think that's the biggest thing. Realize that we're all in this thing together, and give people grace and love on other people and embrace other people. But also I'll give some tangible advice here. So routine is big.
Got it.
For me. As most entrepreneurs talk about this, like routine is really big for me, especially in the mornings. Because the morning sets up your whole entire day. And everybody talks about this. It's not anything new that I'm talking about. But you've got to stick with that routine religiously. Like, you've got to be like, I'm not budging from this routine. And even on a long weekend, like we're going into Labor Day weekend as we're recording this right now. And my wife, it never fails. Friday night, she looks over and she goes, "So are you still going to wake up early tomorrow?" In the back of her mind, she doesn't want my alarm to go off and wake her up. But I'm like, yeah, babe, I'm waking up, same routine. And so I wake up at, 5:30 or 6, depending on the day, or 5 the days I go and work out. But I think routine is huge. You've got to have a morning routine where you're just to yourself, where you can really think about, what your day is going to be like, and start to set your mind up and prepare your mind for what that day is going to be like. Because if you don't, the worst thing you can do is get up and frantically start running around. Okay, I got to get ready. Got to do this.
Yeah.
Before you know it, you're in a bad mood. Before you know it, you're stuck in traffic. Before you know it, you get to work and you're not showing up the way that you want to show up in the world. So routine's big as well. And then for me, the biggest transformation was done through meditation.
Wow. Yeah.
And, all the stress that I dealt with, meditation is way more powerful than anybody I've ever heard talk about it. Like, actually, people downplay it. It's so powerful. And it should be the way that I do it, or the way that I've been practicing it, right? Because I've been doing it for 2 years straight now. And I get to different levels of my meditation where it's just like, you're in like a different world almost. And, there's nothing else around you, and you're in this beautiful moment. So I would say stick with meditation. And at first it's so weird. You're like sitting there, like breathing, you're trying to like do your thing. And you're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of weird. It's weird. It's weird. It's not normal. Like, we don't do this anymore in society. And so you try it and stick with it. I would say meditation is really big for me as well. That's probably my third tip, if I had to give one.
I would, I'd second that. Right. I'm big on meditation and the routine, right? I mean, I'm big on that too. So, well, I appreciate you sharing that and being on, Ben. This was phenomenal. Always fun talking to you, man. I'm very, very grateful for you, and having you on is a blessing. So before we go, why don't you share with everybody how they can find you and reach out to you if they want to get in contact?
Great. Yeah. So the best way to reach out to me is via Instagram. So I'm on Facebook or Instagram, but Instagram's probably where I'm most present, which is just at Ben Snelling, or you can check out the website, which is just bensnelling.com. And or the podcast, which is the Online Dadpreneur as well. Those are probably the best three ways.
Cool. Well, perfect, man. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in again to another episode of the OnPurpose Growth Podcast. If you want to find me, Bryan McDonald, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out. That's, my crew's over there. So you can find me on linkedin.com/in/McDonald Bryan, or at our website, onpurposegrowth.com. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks so much, Bryan. Appreciate you having me on, brother.
Oh, yeah, man.
Thanks for listening to the On Purpose Growth Podcast. Let us know what you thought in the comment section. For more from On Purpose Growth, go to onpurposegrowth.com. Subscribe here at BLTV for all of our content, including the daily Learn About Law podcast, Seize Your Business, Making Real Estate Fun, and Logical Logistics podcast, brought to you by O'Flaherty Law. Thanks for listening.